to deliver the full dividends of democracy to their peoples. African leaders commit to work even harder to address the scourge of terrorism that threatens human security, peace, and development in several African countries. In addition to calling for greater cooperation in intelligence gathering and sharing, African leaders further resolved to stem the proliferation of small arms which aid terrorism and other transnationally organized crimes. Africa and the international community should act in concert to reduce the drivers of illicit trade and transfers of small arms and light weapons. African leaders noted that the youth bulge in Africa and rising unemployment among the skilled and educated is a major challenge to human security, peace, and development. They called for a sharp focus on creating jobs for Africa's teeming youth population, in particular in the areas of skills acquisition, entrepreneurship development, engaging the youth in agriculture as a business, and in terms of access to finance. African leaders called for an urgent need to reduce inequality, ensure policies that improve access to food, water, housing, and education that are crucial for inclusive social participation. African leaders agreed to address the challenge of climate change, which is exacerbating vulnerabilities, desertification, floods, and displacement of populations. African governments commit to empower women to improve human security. Concrete steps should be taken to expand political space for women in national leadership architecture. African women governments resolved to adopt an affirmative finance action for women, which calls on all banks in Africa to devote at least 30% of their lending in agriculture, women farmers, and women-owned agribusinesses. In this African Union's Year of Agriculture, African leaders agree that securing African women's future will secure Africa's future. African leaders called for a sharp focus on wealth creation and expansion of economic opportunities and expanded intra-regional trade to create jobs as well as add value to Africa's primary products and commodities to ensure that wealth is created on the continent. African leaders agreed to redesign security architecture to effectively address insecurities, insurgencies, and conflicts. They recognize that the enemies of the state today in Africa are faceless, driven by religious extremism, ethnic mistrust, rivalries, and propagandas of hate. African leaders now agree that acts of terror against one nation is an act of terror against all. Leaders agree not to use their countries as havens for terrorists and to cooperate to adopt protocols that allow countries to pursue terrorists well into safe havens in other countries and manage their political boundaries to end transboundary terrorism and insurgencies. They stress that the battle against terrorism is a battle for democracy. African leaders share their experiences and agree to learn from the diverse and unique experiences of African countries to better understand the underlying drivers of conflicts, insurgencies, terrorism, and political societal instabilities, and to focus on national reconciliation, social inclusion, ethnic and religious harmony. Given the imperative for Africa to define, shape, and own its own human security, peace, and development, African leaders agree to the establishment of an African Human Security Index to be developed by the African Union to help monitor progress being made. It was agreed that this statement be transmitted to the 23rd Ordinary Session of the Assembly of Heads of State and Government of the African Union, holding in June 2014, to be taken into account in the elaboration of the post-2015 development agenda and Agenda 2063 of the African Union. Conference participants expressed gratitude to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, the government and of Nigeria, for convening the conference and for the generous hospitality extended to them. As the country marks its centenary, participants lauded Nigeria's enormous contributions, leadership, and sacrifice in ensuring continental liberation, freedom, peace, and development. They encouraged Nigeria to remain resolute, united, and focused to assure unity and stability, as Nigeria's success in this regard is vital for the peace and security of the continent. This 27th day of February 2014. Thank you, Excellencies.
Thank you very much. That is a very flexible statement which reflects the outcomes of this international conference. May I now formally request that this meeting is brought to a close and invite that we rise to the national anthem of Nigeria. Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan would like to invite heads of delegations and heads of states to please proceed with him outside for a group photograph marking the centenary celebrations. Thank you. There is also lunch, late lunch at the Makibi Center to the left, to my left. Lunch as well. Everyone should go for lunch at the Makis. Thank you.
The stories we're tracking this hour. Over 20 heads of state have converged on the International Conference Center in Abuja, Nigeria's federal capital territory, to commemorate Nigeria's 100 years of existence, beginning with an international conference on human security, peace, and development. Presenting the lead paper, President Goodluck Jonathan, while highlighting the economic growth in Africa, told the world leaders present that there's a need for collaboration in the fight against terrorism, which is a global threat to development.
The president told his guests that world leaders must strengthen existing mechanisms for national and international conflict management. Citing the recent attacks on students in Yobe State, President Jonathan said that the federal government will spare no funds in its resolve to bring the perpetrators to justice.
As I address you today, I have a heavy heart. Only 2 days ago, terrorists invaded a secondary school and murdered innocent children in Yobe State. The children, the hopes of their parents, and the future leaders of our dear nation. had their hopes and dreams snuffed out